Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Anshula, and today we're going to be chatting about books that make me happy. When I think of stories that bring a smile to my face, House in the Cerulean Sea is the first title that comes to mind. This soft, magic-infused fantasy story just makes my heart so full. Linus Baker is a caseworker sent to an orphanage where he is tasked with checking on 6 very dangerous and very magical children, including a child who could bring about the destruction of the entire world. Linus spends time with these children who have bold, memorable personalities, children who aren't quite who they seem, children who are magical physically but emotionally so utterly human. Linus also interacts with the orphanage director, Arthur Parnassus, and their relationship blossoms over the course of the book too. This is the book that made me realize I'm obsessed with found family stories. House in the Cerulean Sea is sweetly sentimental. It's written in a way that is reminiscent of a middle grade, so it feels a bit nostalgic in that sense, but it's also very much an adult fantasy. It's a book that didn't feel like it was catering to children, but it definitely spoke to the child in me. Let's flip over to a book that is far from a recent read. Flipped is a coming-of-age story I loved as a child, and it flip-flops between 2 perspectives, Julie Baker and Bryce Lowski. Julie is strong-minded, energetic, full of love and hope and life and compassion. Bryce is the boy next door. When he first moves near Julie, she falls head over her 2 tiny little schoolgirl feet for him. Julie is just enamored by Bryce, and it takes her a long time, years, to separate Bryce, the boy in her head and heart and dreams, and Bryce, the reality. Bryce isn't interested in Julie. He's the antithesis of her character. He's immature, he's wishy-washy, he goes with the crowd, he's not sensitive to people's feelings and emotions. Flipped really digs into both characters' headspaces. Why are Bryce and Julie the way they are? Why do they behave in certain ways? You don't just get to see 2 characters, you get to really understand them. Flipped isn't about Bryce and Julie coming together, it's about Bryce and Julie coming into their own livelihoods and opinions and personalities. In so many ways, Flipped is one of the most refreshing books I've ever read on young love, and I really adore it. This book will always hold a special place in my heart. Eat, Pray, Love details Elizabeth Gilbert's ridiculously self-indulgent romp to Italy, India, and Bali, and it's the very self-indulgence this book is shamed for that attracts me to this story. Whenever I flip through my annotations, I'm reminded that taking time to care for yourself, to just be with yourself, is powerful. Within Gilbert's painfully stereotypical American tourist vibes, global getaway are words that remind me to choose happiness over suffering, words that remind me to stop apologizing for choosing myself, words that remind me to be kinder to myself, words that remind me to embrace my emotions fully and openly instead of capping them off. So yes, happiness and joy is what I unabashedly associate with Eat, Pray, Love. Cozy mysteries are some of my favorite comfort reads. Something about a killer always being found and justice always being served, even if it's unrealistic, is very wholesome. It's kind of like a Scooby-Doo unmasking for me. So I want to mention a cozy mystery series that's been my obsession for a while. These are the Noodle Shop mysteries, which star Lana Lee. Lana works at her family's Chinese restaurant. The restaurant is situated in Asia Village, which oddly enough still has customers despite the number of murder investigations Lana gets entangled with. I love this series. It's cheesy. Oh my goodness, it is so cheesy. You know those moments on TV when you see someone look straight to the camera and gasp audibly? These books are that level of drama throughout. Yet there are certain aspects of Lana's character, her introspection, the friction in her relationship with her mother, her hesitation and second guessing in relationships that makes her feel more human and makes me love this series so much more. Lana isn't a sophisticated detective, she isn't Sherlock Holmes or Poirot, but she's smart, she has empathy despite her nosiness, she's loyal, her heart is usually in a good place, and she's a bit of a grown-up Nancy Drew. So far in the series, I've liked most of the books better than the last, which is rare. This is a very comforting series for me. I just find the Noodle Shop books to be a lot of fun to read. The plots are so utterly unrealistic that any weight placed on the murder just wafts away, making them very lighthearted and fun and an all-around good time. I love literary fiction, but very rarely do I read a literary fiction that is positive, that doesn't try to gut me, that doesn't manipulate my emotions and jerk them this way and that. Less is the exception. This isn't one of my favorite books of all time. time, but I would definitely consider it one of the happiest literary fiction books I've ever read. I still think it's an absolute joy. The story follows Arthur Less, hence the name, a failed novelist who travels around the world to avoid a wedding. I just love that Arthur is quite literally running away from his problems, and he puts the very literal definition of flight in flight or fight response. It's great. It doesn't take a lot to amuse me, as you can tell. Andrew Sean Greer's writing is what pulled me in and out and back into Less. This is a very boldly positive novel. There is just a marathon of lighthearted awkwardness en route to a very sweet ending. I love the breadth of places Arthur traveled to. You get to see glimpses of France, Germany, Morocco, India. I appreciated the insight, the careful observations that were wrapped in humor. I didn't find Less to be laugh out loud funny or anything like that, but it was humorous in its own, oh, that's clever, chuckle-inducing way. Moving on to what was one of my favorite books a few years ago, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. A little boy interacts with a mole, a fox, and a horse and learns about life in the process. The lessons are very direct, but they hit me straight in the heart and felt like a hug. I also love that the animals in this story don't fit typical children's book stereotypes. You won't find a shrew mole, a sly fox, and a wild, wayward horse. Charlie Mackesy chooses for the mole to be cake-loving and wise, honest, and not cunning. The fox is quiet and reserved, lending a still, silent presence. The horse is sweet and gentle and majestic. It's a book that, if I flip to any page, reminds me that it's okay to open up a little, it's okay to be a little scared, it's okay to be a little insecure. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse reminds me to do what I can to love and be kind and compassionate. This book is absolutely heartwarming, and you don't have to read the whole book to find those moments of happiness within it. You can flip to any page, and I can almost guarantee you that there's something tender and uplifting and feel good right there. Kiki's Delivery Service is one of my favorite children's books. This is the story of a half-witch Kiki who leaves home for a year to settle down in a new town. It's a witch's tradition that when a witch turns a certain age, they establish themselves in a new home for some time. Kiki starts a business, Kiki's Delivery Shop, and I found so much joy while reading about her optimism. I loved how relatable she was. Her actions were refreshing and unexpected for a half-witch quickly growing up. Kiki's a witch, yes, and she flies. That's her passion, but this book isn't centered on magic in the sense that we might expect from a soft fantasy. It's centered on the magic of creativity and kindness and those special everyday moments, and I love that so much. Pretty much all the characters in this book are likable, especially Gigi and Osono. I loved how frictionless this book was. The first time I read it, I kept anticipating conflict. I kept flipping the pages thinking something bad is going to happen. I was really worried that something awful was gonna jump out in the last quarter of this book, which probably shows what kind of books I normally read. Nothing happened. That's not a spoiler. This is just a happy story all the way through. It's very pure and wholesome and comforting, and I just love the anecdotes about Kiki and her deliveries. I saved Heartstopper, the series, for last because if I started with this book, I would just be talking about Heartstopper for 20 minutes straight. Heartstopper is about Nick and Charlie, who are just some of the sweetest, most lovable characters I've ever come across in any book series. Heartstopper is a boy meets boy love story. Nick and Charlie become friends, and we watch their relationship grow and grow naturally throughout the volumes. There are more characters too: Tao, Tara, Ella, and Darcy, pre-Radio Silence Olive, and all of these characters exist within this wonderful queer-centric universe that Alex Oseman brings to life in Heartstopper. The first volume is sweet and made me feel all the butterflies in my stomach. Each volume after that adds more character depth. And even when there are heavier topics introduced, specifically volume 3 onwards, the topics are handled with a lot of care and respect and sensitivity. There is so much joy and love and warmth that exists in this Nick and Charlie universe. Those are a few books that make me happy. I have more books that bring me a lot of joy, and I want to mention them in future videos. So for the time being, I really want to hear your recommendations for happy books. What books brought you joy as a child? What books bring you joy now? Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys!